We might be live in a second on YouTube. So if we do, I'll use my phone and grab the link.
Yeah, it's showing on my end that says the meeting is now live, streaming live on YouTube.
Yeah, same here. Is that what you want?
Yeah. So we're live. So everybody, we are live. And for those people who are going to get this link, we got to figure this out. But we're on YouTube and people are waiting for us on Facebook. So okay. Okay. So how do I get this link now from this? Oh, I got to click on it and hit share. We got to find how to share this. Just, it's not there though. There's no arrow there. Oh, there, share, copy link. Here we go, guys. Facebook. We're doing it by phone to make it work. It's going to be the most awkward ever opening to a video when the people on the rebroadcast watch this, but they're going to love it. And so it's going to be worth it. Here you go. We are live. Live. We're not love. We are love, but we're live. Publish. Okay. So how do I make sure I don't get all that feedback? Okay, so welcome everybody. We are totally having a crazy night tonight trying to get our technology working, but not only are you talking to a panel or listening to a panel tonight who are going to share amazing information, we are tenacious and we are not giving up, even if this is a total chaos. Look at it, it's happening. I just had to be 100% sure. It's hilarious. So welcome. This is our session, our live event called Wellness in a Pandemic. We recognize that this is a crazy time out there for everyone, and you have been just enduring kind of crazy situation in 2020 after another. I seen a hilarious Facebook post that said we're almost done at 2020, and the next little bit was so treacherous. It's, you know, we don't know what to expect out of a year like this, but I want to welcome you, and I hope that in our little hour that we spend together, you will be able to see the passion that Ryan, Natalie, and Jill have for your mental and physical well-being and so much more. So let me introduce them and kind of give you a little bit of overview, and then we are going to dive right into the main event, finally happening live on YouTube through to Facebook. We don't even know, but we know it's out there. So let me first welcome Ryan Foy to the panel. Ryan is the owner and founder of Foy Consulting. He has authored now 2 books, and he's an international speaker on all things wellness and personal growth. He works with Physical and Health Education Canada. He's based out of Ottawa, but we're claiming him as an Oxford boy. No matter where he goes around the globe, passionately sharing about wellness, we're calling him the hometown boy. So welcome, Ryan. It's great to have you tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And next we have Jill Stewart and Finetch. And Jill is the owner and founder of Your Life Design Inc. And very convenient for people. They offer telehealth therapy, right, Jill? I said that right? So they can help you out online and over the phone. Jill is a specialist in helping helpers. That has been her passion. And if you are somebody in the helping profession, Jill is somebody you want to talk to. She is a social worker, a registered social worker, and she's also faculty in the Human Services program at Holland College on PEI, where she even developed a wellness course. So very fitting to be part of our wellness panel. Welcome, Jill. It's great to have you back again to share with us. And lastly, but not least, is boss lady, Miss Natalie DeVoe. Natalie is owner and founder of Living Life Nutrition and Adventures. I love how all of our panel are owners and founders. This is fantastic. Natalie as well is a certified nutrition coach and a personal trainer and a hiking guide. And you see, I have notes because there's so many things that these people do. I didn't want to mess it up for you. Natalie, through her own journey, has really become a passionate advocate for women to help them understand the value of food, to the importance of functional strength and movement, and the joy of time spent in nature. And she's going to tell us more about that tonight. So this is our panel. I could gush about them forever, but I want to just dive right in because, you know, time is a ticking. So let's begin, as we're going to talk tonight about wellness. I'm going to start with Jill, and just we want to get an idea of what do we mean when we use this term wellness? Can you kind of launch us in with some general kind of understanding around our topic for tonight?
Thanks, Jodi. I guess, you know, sometimes when we think about our health or well-being, you know, we often think, well, maybe it's like, okay, well, we're not sick, or we have an absence of disease, but wellness is when, you know, it's an active process. We never arrive, and it's becoming more aware and making choices towards having a more successful existence, a better quality of life, a way of feeling whole. I think traditionally, you know, if we think about, you know, wellness, we might have think, wait till we get sick or wait till there's a disease or a problem. Where when we think of personal wellness, we think of, you know, how do we reduce our risks for, I'm going to be speaking tonight on emotional well-being, but how, you know, so how would you reduce your risks, or how can you be more responsible for your own, you know, thoughts, quality of life? And it's about lifestyle and versus more treatment of a condition that's already happened. So when I think of wellness, I definitely think of it something on a day-to-day basis, and I certainly have not arrived. It is a journey, and it's a continuum, and we're all at a different place on that journey. And wherever you are tonight, you've taken the time to, either with us tonight or watching the replay, to press pause and look at your own life and see how you're doing. And if there needs to be some tweaking or adjusting, we're hoping that, you know, hopefully tonight's discussion can spark and ignite some passion in you to care about yourself, so you can be better able to care for those you love around you.
Awesome, Jill. So well put. And I know Natalie and Ryan, where you're both kind of in the wellness field as well. You each have your own lens. Is there anything that you would add? Maybe Natalie, we'll start with you. You know, as you kind of understand wellness and what it means to you.
Definitely, it has many, many layers, as you know, we've already discussed in this short time together, and we're going to continue to discuss. So I think that the wellness piece is quite it is quite multidimensional. So when we talk about the daily practices that we can make and changes we can make, they're just numerous. I mean, so I think that when really, to Jill's point, it's the daily things that we do that we can actually start to think about changing and, you know, making it a little bit better to enhance our wellness on a day-to-day basis to get that bigger picture.
Awesome. Thanks. And what are your thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, these are some really good definitions. One, and I love just how fluid and dynamic the term is. You know, one of the things that I've reflected on a lot over the past few years is if I were to put it into a definition, what would that be? And for me, I've defined it as wellness is a series of intentional actions, when done daily, take us from living a good life to living our best life. And I think that the two key words in that definition that I've come to terms with is, and Jill and Natalie both touched on it, but the daily piece, like it has to be daily. We're constantly working on it. And the second word being intention. You know, I think that there's a lot of misconception that wellness is just going to happen to us, or we're just going to be well. But what does that mean? Like, are there certain things that we can control? Are there certain routines that we can build? Are there certain decisions and actions we can do to continue to be well? And I think that's why we're all brought together here today. So it's exciting.
Awesome. Well, let's jump right in now. As we've been preparing for this, and I have to apologize because I am checking because of all these technical difficulties to make sure we are working. And I think we're functional, so that's great. But as we were preparing, I was really learning a lot myself about the different dimensions of wellness. We're going to start with physical. Now, if you're like me, when you think of physical wellness, we think right away, walk in and exercise and go to the gym. Well, in Natalie's program, she actually has kind of 5 key fundamentals. And the first one is eat well. So when we think of physical, I want to start with nutrition, as it's kind of a passion and it's your thing, Natalie. Why is eating well the first place we kind of go when we begin to talk about our physical wellness?
Yeah, for me, that was an easy place to land because it is certainly a large piece of the work I do, but it really was an experiential learning curve for me because of my own journeys. But I think that nutrition is really the foundation, and it is really a building block to many of the other things that we're going to discuss tonight. And food has such ability to send messages to throughout our whole body. I mean, really, it is meaningful. It is it informative. Food is really quite intelligent, as is our bodies, but it has the ability to reshape our health. It has the ability to reshape our body composition. It has the ability to change our performance and our well-being in general, really. So we think we neglect to give it the credit it deserves. I think we know carbs equal energy, which equals better performance, and proteins help with muscles, and healthy fats help with hormone regulation. But I don't think we really realize that a lot of those things affect our mood, the way we age, disease, reducing our risk of injury, all those sorts of things. So nutrition for me is really the foundation of all the other pieces of wellness, because I really feel like if we don't have those things in place, then it's kind of like driving on a flat tire. You know, you can do it, but it's really not optimal, right? So I really think that that's why nutrition was the first of the 5 steps for me and an easy place for us to start. And again, I think during a pandemic, or any times of stress, really, that's the first thing to go, right?
Yeah, I think I was actually reading something because, I'm on a diet, or no, that's a bad word. I'm trying to eat healthy and live healthy. And I was reading this little article on emotional eating. I'm like, no, not at all. I'm not an emotional eater. And then I read a little bit more about it, and I'm thinking of COVID and like long days at home. And I'm like, okay, maybe I am, but you're right. It's a good place to start. Well, let's kind of jump into movement. I know it's your kind of second step, and Ryan, I know you have a lot of passion around getting people moving. You've even tried to get this old girl moving before on the odd time, flipping tires and doing things I was never meant to do. Talk to us a little bit about movement.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Jodi. I think right now in a pandemic, it's just very interesting. It's an interesting time because we're exploring new opportunities, potentially going outside more, doing more, maybe hiking or walking, which is great, but some of us may not be. And so I think, if folks are tuning in and maybe you can't recall the last time you did some kind of moderate to vigorous physical activity, the important message or the important piece right now that I would say would just be to start somewhere, start anywhere.
Good one.
And just start. And I would treat, honestly, the month of November or the next 20 days as a science experiment. Can you do some sort of physical activity for the next 20 days? And then what I would do after that science experiment is I would celebrate. Like, we need more things to celebrate in 2020. So call a friend, get on Zoom, talk to somebody, and celebrate that, you had 20 days of physical activity in whatever form that is for you. And just to celebrate that. And similar to what Natalie's point was around the foundational piece with nutrition, 100%, those two go hand in hand. And, there may be other folks that are tuning in that they would probably consider themselves to be movers, but maybe that's been different with the pandemic. And for those folks, I think I would just suggest or think about developing new routines. We've all kind of had to adapt. I'm sure everybody on this panel has had to adapt their wellness routine or their physical activity routines. Even here in Ottawa, we're in stage 2 lockdown, so I'm working out on playgrounds and running in nature. So I think it's just important, to keep it a big rock in the schedule of the week, and to not move that rock wherever that rock sits. Hold on to it. and to make it happen. And to just, again, if you're looking to start, just start somewhere. And if you are moving, just try to move more. And what I'll do too is I'll drop in the chat box and maybe afterwards a link to the 24-hour movement guidelines that kind of just outline that a little bit more as well.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And I know as a lot of people think about moving and getting in active, it takes them outdoors. So I like, Natalie, how it made sense in your steps and the eat well and move. You talk about getting outdoors, but you've shared a lot about getting outdoors. That's really pushed me to understand or think about things beyond just maybe going outside to have a little walk. So tell us about your passion for outdoor adventure and ecotherapy, or whatever you call it. Let's hear about it.
Well, there are many names for it. So basically it's that experience of being out in nature and promoting wellness by doing so. And oftentimes you're moving your body at the same time. So you're sort of, getting those two steps in one. But the idea behind getting outside is, from a therapeutic standpoint, we've known for a long time that it just feels good, right? It just feels good to go outside, but we haven't always known why. So in the 80s, we were fortunate enough to borrow the wisdom from the Japanese, because the Japanese government actually created this many studies where they discovered that being in the forest actually reduced stress levels, and blood pressure was reduced, and heart rates went down when people were in the forest. And there were all kinds of measurable outcomes that came out of that study. So they were able to conclude that that was actually something that was beneficial to our health. And they actually went as far as to show studies where people who had cancer, the rates were higher if you lived near the forest. If you lived outside the forest, and if you were near the forest, your cancer rates were lower. So it's quite an amazing study. And it led to something called forest bathing, or Shinrin-yoku in Japan. And so from that came all kinds of really neat things that we've all learned about, like phytoncides, which are basically substances that trees give off that we absorb when we're in nature. And those are the things that actually make us feel better. So we don't think about those things because they happen naturally when we're out there. But when we're in the forest and we're taking in the forest through our senses, all those things are happening on a very molecular level. So it's quite amazing. And in terms of wellness, we're talking about not just physical illness, but emotional and mental health as well. So for me, taking my work outside has been just really life-shifting for myself, but it's been a wonderful thing to witness other people experience, and the feedback has been phenomenal. And most people don't think of it from a scientific point of view. They're just having a great time and really feeling good about themselves afterwards. And so the feedback from that afterwards is always it's quite remarkable. And so I think that ecotherapy is sort of, it sounds like a big fancy term, but it really just means spending more time outside and getting the benefits of nature. And COVID or not, we still have that, right? So that is one thing that that the pandemic has not taken from us.
It's not taken.
That's right. So get outside.
Yes. And you do this cocooning. And until you started posting about this, I'm like, what is cocooning? Is it something I should do? Or
yes.
But it looks exciting, and hiking and you do feel great. I mean, I just did a great hike in Cape Breton this past weekend, and I mean, I was pushed all that I had to get up out of that hole, but it feels so good, and just peace in your heart and your mind. So it's physical and mental benefits, which is awesome. We're all about 2 for 1. Let's be efficient in our world today. Well, when we think of, physical health, we do talk about moving, we talk about getting outside, we talk about nutrition, but interesting, Ryan brought up this whole idea of how critical sleep is to our physical health. I think that might be one that it's really important, maybe, is it, Ryan? But I think we can shove that off to the side when we're busy and neglect it, and we shouldn't, perhaps. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's been a lot. I've been fascinated recently with this idea of sleep hygiene. We have like oral hygiene and just general hygiene, but this idea, I've been reading up a lot on sleep hygiene. How do we improve that really necessary part of our lives? A lot of times that does get neglected because we're not doing anything. We're just sleeping. But I really like in the 24-hour movement guidelines, it just came out for all Canadian adults, 18 to I think 64. It it recommends 7 to 8 hours a night, but they put the word quality in. And the word quality, I mean, there's probably tons of research out there around that word, but I really like that because, you know, you could sleep maybe 10 or 11 hours and wake up exhausted because you didn't have a quality sleep, or you could sleep 7 hours and wake up feeling really rested because you had a quality sleep. And so there's certain things that can go into that. And some of the things that we've explored here in our home in Ottawa is I've created what's called the sacred hour. Just before bedtime, it's usually that 1 hour where there's no technology or very, very little technology. You know, notifications go off for social media, and it's usually a book out reading or some sort of an interactive maybe activity we're reading together in our home, just to really quiet the mind and just bring us down from the day. Because as we all know, there's just so much coming at us on the news and on social media, and just so much turbulence that our brains almost can't handle it all, and we need that time to almost get ready for sleep. And so that's something that's been really effective here, and it's kept us going, and it's something that I'm a huge advocate for. Yeah.
Good. I've actually found that the apps, there's some really good apps, and if I can't get my brain to slow down at night, because sometimes that's a struggle, like, let's be real, you know, I found like listening to stories on some of the apps that I have super helpful, and it kind of pulls your mind out of the chaos. And it's a really great way. Lots of free apps. So if you find it hard to get to sleep, maybe you think that's super cheesy, but try it. It helps a lot. So lots of great things to think about with physical health. And I think as we shift to look at mental health a little bit, I do want to come back a little bit to Ryan. When you said about the 20 days, I actually shared early this year how I was physically really struggling with exhaustion, and challenged people to the 2190 to join me on that journey. And it was about 21 days to form a habit and 90 days to change a lifestyle. And it was great. And if people are listening and knowing, you know, when it comes to physical, you know, they need to eat better, sleep better, get moving, get outside, and want to take that, I encourage you. It did a lot for me, and I didn't do it alone. I took a group. We did it together. We kind of held each other accountable, and it was quite significant. We moved the needle. We started, right? Didn't matter where we were, just start. So that's a very practical and real help. So let's move into the mental health a bit, Jill, and I want to get you here into the conversation. You've been passionate to help people with mental health, and I know in my profession and people that I'm dealing with, it is a crazy time. I don't know if people ever have been this maxed out mentally, but talk to us a little bit about things that are on your heart and you're seeing, and some things that might be helpful for those struggling really on the mental health side with the pandemic.
Sure. Thanks, Jodi. Well, first of all, October is Emotional Wellness Month, and a lot of times we think about, when we think about wellness, we do think about those physical things like our eating, our nutrition, our exercise, nature. Those are critical things. Or some people have all their eggs in another basket and they're completely focused only on their spiritual health, or maybe other parts of wellness. But emotional wellness, that's when, if we stay emotionally well, then we can keep our mental well-being. We can face challenges more easily. And right now, since March, we've all been in completely unprecedented times. Mm-hmm. And while I'll give you this concept, there's some research, it started to come out from a major mental health organization in Canada, but even in April, but even recently, I guess I was reading in early October, there's some concern for what we would call an echo pandemic. So we've been prepared when we think of the physical health side, we're mm-hmm. prepared with, you know, with masks and equipment.
Hospitals, yeah.
Yeah, all of those things. And it's very similar to physical injuries. You know, we sprain an ankle, we know we go to physiotherapy, or we get massage or chiropractic. We understand physical health sometimes because it's more tangible and observable, where our mental health or our emotional well-being is invisible sometimes. And so if you're on here, you say, well, I exercise, it burns the stress. Absolutely. It completely does. But some things that you might want to think about when you think about emotional health, you can think about, I guess it refers to when you have an awareness and an understanding and an acceptance of your emotions, and that you have an ability to manage your emotions through challenges and change. So that's when this is, I guess, that lens where you look through to see, so how am I doing on my emotional wellness? And you can ask yourself, you know, am I able to treat and respond versus react? Am I able to respond compassionately, or am I having road rage and not being able to manage my emotions, or, you know, like snapping at people? That's emotional health. So if you find yourself, you know, engaging in those type of behaviors, it's a red flag to say, you know, how much attention do we really put on our own behavior and our emotional reactions under pressure? And there's nothing like a pandemic, a global pandemic, and we haven't had one for 100 years, like nothing like that to really illuminate where you could be feeling stress. I compare it to, you know, if you had a can of Pepsi or Coke, I'm not sure. We better say something like a juice or something, and you shake it, and you shake it, and you're on the edge, right? You're living at the edge. So emotional edge, where you can snap so easily. And when you're emotionally well, you know, you engage in positive thoughts. You complain less. You have a narrative in your mind about positive thinking. So again, I don't know, maybe we're all different on our journeys. So I may have a bit more of a focus on my emotional well-being and maybe neglecting, you know, my financial or spiritual health or well-being. So again, but these, I don't know, a lot of times I'm not sure. I know a lot of the people I work with don't really take, I guess they get to see me after they've realized I've neglected part of my wellness. Am I open-minded and flexible? Like if you can't, you know, your ability to maneuver and navigate through change, can you move forward? Are you able to weather the storms of life and not completely, you'll see people, we'll all have instances that happen to us, and some people are able to, you know, face everything and rise, and others we want to face everything and run. It's fear. And so I think that just having that awareness that we all have feelings and emotions, and if you're packing them down and using other ways, these are, I think, when you're looking at your wellness and you're managing it, like you mentioned, you know, emotional eating. Well, people do lots of things when they're not managing their emotional health: eating, drinking, spending, what is to soothe and numb that pain if you're not managing your processing your feelings. So we've got a lot of things happening, and there's a lot of research right now too. I was reading in CBC yesterday that a lot of people are worried that, you know, the anxiety that we've experienced during the pandemic may morph into depression with the winter months coming. And like you said, you're in Ottawa, you're back into a quasi lockdown. I guess it's phase 2, is it, Ryan? You said? Yeah. So, you know, I always think I'm here in Prince Edward Island. So when Natalie talks about the forest bathing and the nature and connection, and we're not in lockdown here, you know, we are very fortunate, but we have to think about what's happening globally. And so if you're on somewhere else, you know, your emotional well-being is a part of the puzzle for wellness. And sometimes it just doesn't get on the radar.
So Jill, you're kind of saying a lot of things we can, if we are willing to just self-reflect, are they really evident if we'll be truthful and look? If we really kind of take an analysis to say, oh yeah, why am I really doing that? If it's something, maybe I don't want to be overeating, or I don't want to be spending or drinking or whatever it is in this excessive way. Like, is it mostly there for people to see if they're willing to look and they'll see the flags? Or like, what do people do if they're feeling it, but they just don't know what to do with it?
Well, it's a lot easier to just blame someone else or say it's somebody else's fault than you're snapping at your kids or your spouse, or, or your patience is thin at work. It's normal. And these are some things that, if self-awareness is critical.
Yes.
And if you've never done therapy before, it helps you to sort of look at yourself and glean patterns of behavior and awareness, to see where your weak points are and what areas you might want to work through, to see how you can have a better quality of life. Because when we're anxious, we can do some things that are just, it doesn't have to be like somebody biting their nails worried and feeling just worried. It can look like irritability. It can look like it can look like
different ways.
It can look things. So I think my point, I guess, just to add to the conversation, is that, take some time to think about your emotional well-being, because we all have mental health, we all have physical health. And we are really sometimes a bit more open to thinking about, well, I went to the gym, versus saying, well, I went to therapy, or I doing this for my mental well-being, when we all have it.
Well, Jill, you're kind of touching on the fact that there has been stigma, but I appreciate the efforts going out today to kind of destigmatize mental health. And I personally am so passionate about that. And so I have been, even in my job as a pastor, I know people have been like, what? Like, I thought you would be perfectly happy all the time. I'm like, who are you talking about? And so Jill is my therapist, and I have talked to her, and and have struggled as a human with my mental health, because the word that I want to kind of throw into the mental health conversation is margin. I read an amazing book on margin. I've read several books kind of on burnout and things like that. But we live today with no margin. Like, if we fill up the day like a page, it's totally full. We jump from one thing to the next. We go from one email to the next. We have 100 people that we're connecting with, when we're meant for like less and less. And so when we live like maxed out with no margin, financially, physically, mentally, I mean, it's just, it doesn't matter. It's terrible for our health. So I've had to come, to grips with it and be real about it and walk the journey, with my own physical health, my own mental health. And that's it. We're all on a journey. And I love that you're there, and people shouldn't be feeling that they can't, if they struggle with self-reflection, talk to somebody, get some help to analyze what you're doing and why you're doing it, so you can move forward and grow. Because I think if I look at you guys, that's all we want, is to help people like grow, get better, and become all that they're meant to be. So I love it. Before we kind of move from mental, I do want to go back to you, Ryan and Natalie. And we'll start with you again, Natalie. I know we talked about 3 of your steps, but the last 2 that are so foundational to everything you do have to do with like solitude and gratitude. So talk about how you mix the 2 and how you feel both are so key.
Right. Yeah, actually, this is a good, I was thinking about the solitude piece, because we are living in an age where we are hyper connected right now. I mean, there's just, speaking to the margins conversation and whatnot. So solitude has become really important for me. And I think that it's something that we've gotten away from in many ways because of the social media and everything else that we have so accessible. So solitude for me is the opportunity for you to find your inner voice. It's the opportunity for you to really discover yourself, to make better choices, to increase productivity, to unwind, really. So that is very difficult to do when you have millions of distractions around you, right? So, or when somebody else is influencing you. So solitude is one of the 5 steps for that reason, because, you know, genuinely we've kind of lost our way with that a little bit. The gratitude piece really is a real gift, I think, that you can give yourself, because gratitude is one of those things that when you stop and acknowledge little blessings that you have throughout the day, and it can be very simple, like write down 3 things at the end of the day that you're grateful for, you know, and something that made you think for a minute, wow, that's really nice, or boys, I really enjoyed that. And that's a blessing. That's something to be grateful for. Once you start to really acknowledge those, you start to invite happiness into your life. And the next thing you know, day after day, those things just come a little more obvious to you, and there they are. Mm-hmm. And it really does make you feel more alive. It increases positive emotions. It helps you even sleep better, you know, to Ryan's point. All those things have such a ripple effect that I think that we can be a little more intentional about expressing that gratitude and inviting a little more happiness and kindness, and just real compassion into our lives, because we've kind of neglected to do that as well in our business.
And isn't it crazy that if we did that, what's the worst case scenario? The world's a better place because we're thankful, nice people. Like, seems like a good thing to me. I love the gratitude practices and solitude too, because it gives some margin. I love it. What are your thoughts, Ryan, kind of on this? And I know you're probably going to jump into some journaling thoughts, because you've shared a lot and are doing great things in that way. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for those who get this recording, rewind and go back to this part of the conversation, because what Natalie and Jill just said is phenomenal, and it's worth repeating. I'm going to go back and rewatch that. So thank you both for sharing that. But yeah, to both of their points, you know, this is why, so I created a journal this year, and, you know, I was talking to my wife, because I journal all the time, and I journal for those reasons. It gives me that space to let out my emotions. It gives me the space for gratitude. It gives me the space to feel calm and steady. So I was talking to my wife, and, you know, I was originally going to develop this in 2022 or 2021. And then, you know, April, I was looking around and I was like, I need to do this now. Like, I need to develop this now because I need it. And if I need it, I know there's others out there that need it. So journaling is just an incredible practice. And so I would encourage folks to go back to that. I feel like we've probably lost that in the busyness. Like Natalie mentioned, there's just so much coming at us that people forget that in those fringe hours or in those margins, maybe we can take that time and just journal and reflect and pause and be still and be calm. And I think you're right, Jodi. It's a better world when we can offer that to our loved ones, to ourselves, and to the people we care about.
And wouldn't that be the answer, right? A better place. We're feeling better. We're kinder. We're thankful. We're given some space. We just kind of need to slow down and commit to doing some stuff. Sometimes it's all about knowing what to do, but just doing it, you know? Jill, would you kind of share a little bit more? I mean, we are sensitive to the time here. There's so many great things we could talk about, but as I think a lot of the people listening, they're getting some great tips around physical, mental, lots of things that if people are really wanting to, they can say, you know what, this is tweaking something. I need to get out in nature. I need to submerge, and I need to, get some real sleep. What about some of the other areas? While we might not have time to unpack them, can you let us know about the other dimensions and even just to kind of bring them to the surface for people to think about?
Yeah, sure. I think I'll start by saying, if you're watching this and you're saying, I've gained all this weight during COVID, I'm just disconnected, I feel depressed, I haven't been, outside away from my desk because I'm working at home. I guess self-compassion is something I just want to mention before we go, because we're very hard on ourselves. Especially, in the pandemic, some people are like, oh, I've learned 2 new languages and that, now studying this, if you're just surviving right now, that's that. I just don't want you to be hard on yourselves. But this, if you don't take time to stay well, then your body and mind will you'll have to make time, because you'll get on well and you'll have to take time to manage that then. So wellness is more on that preventative piece, on self-management. So I guess the other areas of wellness, if you were to think about, there are a number, and again, we as a team are just going to summarize some of the things we've talked about. And if you want to jump in, Ryan or Natalie or Jodi, I guess one dimension of wellness relates to that recreational or recreational or leisure. And a lot of times, which we've talked about, we've crammed so many things in that that's not even on some people's radar. That has to be, if you were to develop a personal wellness plan where you were managing yourself and trying to be at your optimal level of functioning and well-being, you'd carve out time for that. Wow. The other, like you'd have recreational hobby, like social connection with others, like that would be part of it. And some of you already have that lifestyle where you have that around you, but if you don't, loneliness and isolation and the holidays coming, like these can be difficult things.
True.
So that's social, recreational, leisure. Another type of wellness is your environment. So environmental wellness, and that can be, do you have a good place where you're comfortable, where you live, or in the community, or pollution, I guess. I'm in Prince Edward Island, so if you're in an urban center and you think about nature and pollution and just like all of the environment plays a big role. And that can be, if you were to revamp and reset and look at how you might want to redesign things, you'd think of that. The other is, intellectual or occupational wellness. And right now, I mean, there's so many people that have had job change, job loss.
Yeah.
So that can be a stressor. And intellectual wellness, if you're never stimulating yourself, like doing anything, and like you're watching this and you're a senior, you've still got to use that brain, right? Like try to, those are part of being well. And then of course there's spiritual wellness, and that's Jodi's lane in traffic. That's the lane she's on. So, and there's other ways of looking at spiritual wellness too, like Natalie's, her forest bathing and the other types of things of connecting with your spirituality. But yes, that spirituality is a huge component. And then financial wellness, which that would be another category where you're if you're struggling there, it's really hard. If you're struggling to say, oh yeah, well, I can't afford to eat healthy or go a gym membership when you might have those issues. So we have to recognize those culture. And then lastly, like a cultural connection and wellness, like if you have, being able to connect with that for yourself. So those are just some other categories if you're holistically that I'd recommend. But Ryan and Natalie, pop in if you have anything to say on any of that as well, because I know that you've done so much work in this field.
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in real quick. I just want to build on the social wellness side. As part of that, I look at the relational side. So those really, really close relationships, say with your spouse, your partner, your family, and how it's more important than ever to be continuing to nurture those, even if it's distance or virtual, or meeting for a backyard lawn chair distant meet up, whatever that language is.
6 feet apart.
yeah it's super important. I know recently Dr. Teresa Tam, she referenced the idea of this COVID fatigue, which we've talked about, and I think that's real, and I think that's going to continue, especially as Canada transitions here into winter, and including those relationships and bringing those relationships in wherever we can, to go for those walks or to just have that conversation over the phone. How are you doing? Just check in, just to make sure, there's a perception that we might be doing all right, but you never know, right? So it's just really good to really lean on those people close to you, yes, but also reach out to those people around you and just see how they're doing.
Any thoughts, Nat?
Yeah, I think I'm going to jump on the cultural piece and echo a little bit of what's been said already. But I think that with the, particularly with nutrition, we always feel like we have to do something really drastic. And I really, really want people to understand that one of the things I really try to incorporate in my in my coaching is 80-20, which means 80% of the time try to eat minimally processed food, but the other 20 are equally important. That 20% eat whatever you want. So if that means having a glass of wine with your girlfriends on Friday night, don't stop doing that. Like if it means having cake at your daughter's birthday party, by all means. Those, like, we celebrate, we're a culture that celebrates with food, and I think that that's not something we want to let go of. We don't need a new diet. We just need to understand ours a lot better. And I think that that for me is something I really want to stress, because there's so many crazy restrictions out there that I think that it's worth saying that those are really important pieces to hang on to, particularly right now when we gather.
And as I listen and think about all of your roles in wellness, I honestly wouldn't as much have thought of myself in a wellness type role. But as we look at how there's so much to us, the thing that really pops out to me is how our mental health is so intricately woven together with our physical health, with our spiritual health, with our environment, and all of them affect our mood and our attitude. So like we can be on a negative direction, or we can, just kind of move forward positively. And like as Jill said, in my lane, that's all I try to help people is wherever they are. And I'm sure, Natalie, when someone comes to you with help me with my food, it's the same, start wherever you are. And I'm sure with everyone, it's Jill the same, right? With mental health, it's like start where you are, but just don't be so content to stay there that you don't keep growing and keep moving. And everything is connected. So little bits of positive begin to have this ripple effect. And you see that the same way in relationships. When I start giving and your spouse is like, oh, I like it. And so then it's moving in a positive direction as the cup fills. But I know people can't do this alone. And I know there's some people who would be listening, who would feel just like I don't feel well, but maybe I don't know where to start. We need each other. And I love that that's what you guys do. I mean, that's what I do. There's people that are around that are willing to jump into that journey with you in whatever dimension you need the most help with. And that's kind of super cool as I hear you and, even know as a person. I look to all of you, and that's how we're connected. And you all inspire me in different ways. So I don't know, that just stands out to me as really cool. Now, I will say I apologize for our technical problem. For some reason, Zoom and Facebook today are not getting along. So we had to go to YouTube and then post the link on Facebook. And that silly Facebook doesn't like sharing things that are Zoom. So we will get this out to people, but because they're not necessarily knowing it's on right now, the way that it landed, we don't have a Q&A. But let me just instead close this way. I'd like to kind of circle around to all of you and just ask you to kind of, as we've talked about all this tonight, if you could share one kind of final thought with the people listening, what's on your heart and in your mind to share tonight. So I'm just going to say who's ready, who wants to go first. I'm gonna whoever's got it ready to share. You go, Ryan. You look ready. What do you got?
Yeah. Well, I have a couple things, but I'll stick to one just for time.
You can do two. We'll be graceful tonight.
Oh, okay. That's great. It's the daily double. This is great. Yeah. Well, maybe I'll lead with this. I really like what Jill mentioned around the financial side. And when I look at wellness as a whole, it's investment, right? It's investing. And so every time you open the journal, that's an investment in your wellness. Every time you go to nature, that's an investment in your wellness. Every decision that you make, whether it's a decision for your mental or your emotional or your physical or whatever, it's an investment. And I think if we look at it that way, we pay attention, right? We start to pay a little bit more attention to how important that is over time. And I think that's important. And then maybe I'll finish with one little key message. And this is something I've thought a lot about, but we need to be well to lead well. And I firmly believe that leadership starts in all of our homes. And so if we take care of our wellness, I believe that other things fall into place. And it's not easy, right? But it's those intentional actions and just trying to make it happen.
Awesome. Which one of you ladies is next to spill some wisdom? Final thoughts.
I don't know if it's wisdom, but I think it takes I always use this term, like a carousel of supports around each of us. And I could think of all of these, like in a little pie or a spoke on a wheel, even, that each of these areas are important. I know sometimes when have too many eggs in the work basket and your work, and all of those other areas fall, you think, oh, it'd be so nice to just be at home. And then if you don't have social connection and you actually get that, then you don't function. So it has to be, you want to think of all of the areas as a carousel, and not be embarrassed that you need some help, and that we all do. And that if we don't focus on this, then we can't help other people, and we can't really fulfill our own passions or callings of what we're here to do. So I think that's really what I want to leave with. Thanks for having me, Jodi.
Awesome. Well, Jill, remind us again, what are all the spokes on the wheel? Let's go over them so everybody's got them in their head and knowing which ones their baskets are low on. What do we got? We started with...
I hope I can go with this. Let's do it. Okay, so of course, physical, emotional and mental wellness, social wellness, recreational, leisure wellness, environmental wellness, intellectual wellness, occupational wellness. If we don't have a job, it's stressful. If we want spiritual wellness, and financial wellness. We'll start with that list.
We'll throw those out to all the listeners tonight, and you can figure out which one of your baskets need help. That's great, Jill. Put you right on the spot there to see if you can think quick on your notes. Good job. Natalie, what are some final thoughts from you tonight?
Yeah, thank you again. I just want to say, I think for me, the 5 steps to fly, which fly stands for first love yourself. Eat well, move your body, get outside, go solo, practice gratitude. Don't worry about getting it right, just worry about getting it going. I think that that's the most important thing. I think we stress too much about doing everything perfectly. So we're talking about progress, not perfection. Pursue your health from a place of love. You cannot shame yourself healthy. I think that's my biggest message tonight.
Wow. Oh, my land, I'm inspired. That was so good, you guys. Thank you. I do want to say thank you. These panelists have given their time just freely because they care about your wellness. And I probably would have, if we had started without all these tech troubles, I would have just been clear at the beginning. Some people aren't maybe sure why it's on Oxnaz online and we're sharing this, and is this church? And it's not. It's just simply my heart is part of what I do, is to help that and help people grow. And this is part of it, just to share what we know to help you to go from where you are and move forward. So that is my desire. And I guess that would be my final thought. My passion here in this building at church where I work is to help people grow in love for God and others. And part of that, like you said, Natalie, it's loving yourself, loving other people, growing in faith. That's my lane. But I feel like we do that when we become better. And so I love this topic about wellness. I'm so thankful to all of you guys for being willing to share. And we will get a good post on Facebook where this video is, and I know each one of you will put your contact information, because some listening may want to reach out and say, Ryan, tell me more about your journal. Natalie, how do I get involved in your nutrition? Jill, I probably could use telehealth therapy. So they will put their comments below. I hope that we get this pushed out, because this is such great information for you. And I will close just with this, with a thank you, and that, my hope and my prayer for everyone is they just become fully well in every way that they can, and just be all they were made to be. Lots of love, peace, gratitude.